the girl who shined. Sophie had always been told she wasn't beautiful. Her hair was messy and always looked a little out of place, her glasses often slid down her nose, and she wasn't tall like the other girls in her class. At school, Sophie often found herself sitting at the back of the room, feeling unnoticed. Other girls seemed to glide through life effortlessly, with their long, shiny hair and perfectly painted smiles. Sophie didn't quite fit in with them, and that used to make her feel small. But what Sophie had, what the others didn't know, was a spark, a talent that had nothing to do with how she looked. Sophie had an amazing gift for science. She loved solving problems, reading about space, and experimenting with new ideas. Sophie's notebook was filled with sketches of machines, scientific equations, and dreams of making a difference in the world. At the beginning of the school year, Sophie's science teacher, Mr. Daniels, announced a national science competition. Students from all over the country would be participating, and the winner would receive a scholarship to a prestigious science university. Sophie's heart raced when she heard about it. She knew that this could be her chance to prove herself. "I'm going to do it," Sophie said to herself one night, sitting at her desk with her notebook open in front of her. "I'm going to enter this competition and I will win." The next day at school, Sophie told her best friend, Mia, about the competition. Mia, who was one of the popular girls, smiled at Sophie, but didn't seem convinced. "Really? Are you sure, Sophie?" Mia asked, her voice dripping with skepticism. "I mean, you're not exactly, the prettiest person in school. Don't you think the judges will want someone who looks good too?" Sophie felt a sting in her chest, but she didn't let it show. She knew her talent was more important than her appearance. "Looks don't matter. It's about the work you put in. I'm going to give this my best shot," Sophie said firmly. Sophie spent every free moment she had preparing for the competition. She read books on chemistry, engineering, and physics. She watched documentaries on scientists like Marie Curie, the first woman to win a Nobel Prize and a pioneer in the field of radioactivity. She admired Ada Lovelace, the mathematician who created the first algorithm intended for a machine and became the world's first computer programmer, even though she lived in an era that didn't value women's education. Sophie was inspired by these women, and it pushed her to work harder. She spent nights in her room, experimenting with different designs for her project, a simple machine that could help purify water in polluted areas. It wasn't glamorous and it wasn't flashy, but Sophie poured her heart into it. At the competition, Sophie felt a little nervous. She had seen the other students. Many of them had fancy displays, and their presentations looked impressive. Some even wore fancy clothes, as if to show they were ready for the spotlight. Sophie, however, wore the same outfit she always wore, a comfortable sweater, jeans, and sneakers. She didn't care about fashion. She cared about making her project work. When it was Sophie's turn, she stepped up to the judges' table, holding her machine carefully. She took a deep breath and started explaining how her design worked, how it could filter pollutants and provide clean water to people who needed it most. Her voice trembled at first, but then it grew stronger as she spoke about the impact her invention could have on communities in need. She showed the judges how her machine could filter dirty water into clean drinking water, using a combination of sand, charcoal, and a special filter she had designed. When Sophie finished her presentation, the judges were silent for a moment. They exchanged glances, clearly impressed by her work. "You've created something truly remarkable, Sophie," one of the judges said. "This is not only creative, but it's practical, and it has the potential to help a lot of people." Sophie's heart swelled with pride. She had done it. She had proved that it wasn't about how she looked, but about what she had to offer. Weeks later, the results of the competition were announced. Sophie's hands shook as she opened the email, and when she saw that she had won, she couldn't believe it. She had beaten the other competitors, not because she was the prettiest or the most polished, but because her idea was unique and well thought out. It was her talent, her hard work, and her passion that had earned her the victory. At the award ceremony, Sophie stood on the stage in front of hundreds of people, holding her trophy. As she looked out at the crowd, she thought of the women who had inspired her, Marie Curie, Ada Lovelace, and others who had proven that hard work and perseverance mattered more than appearances. Sophie had just joined their ranks. After the ceremony, Mia came up to her, looking both surprised and impressed. "Sophie, I have to admit, I didn't think you could do it," Mia said. "But you were right. It wasn't about looks. It was about your talent and your determination. You've really shown everyone that what matters is what's inside." Sophie smiled, holding up her trophy. "It's not about being the most beautiful or the most popular. It's about doing the hard work, following your passion, and never giving up. Look at all the great people in history who didn't fit the traditional mold. Helen Keller, who overcame being deaf and blind to become a famous author and activist. Stephen Hawking, who became one of the most brilliant scientists despite living with ALS. They didn't let their challenges define them. They let their talent speak for itself." Mia nodded. "You're right. I'm proud of you, Sophie. You've shown me that beauty is more than skin deep." Sophie felt a sense of peace and pride wash over her. She had always known that her worth wasn't tied to how she looked, but to what she could achieve. And now, everyone else would see it too. The girl who once felt invisible had proven that it wasn't her appearance that defined her. It was her talent, her heart, and her determination to make a difference. She had finally found her place in the world, and nothing, not even the opinions of others, could take that away from her. The end.